I had the privilege today to interview a survivor of Hephzibah House. Her name is Jenny. Jenny and I had a great conversation. Pardon some of the quality. I'm not a professional, and my daughter walked in while I was doing the Zoom call, but and we had some connection issues. But the story is important. We're going to break it up into 3 sessions. Before I start the video, I'm going to share this clip of this pastor. I've shared it before. I think it's important to air what this pastor says, and then you listen or watch the interview with Jenny. So let's play what this pastor says. He said this is from this year, when my dad preached at his church.
Tonight we have someone who's been with us before. Actually, I believe it was last year or maybe the year before last. Brother Williams, for years, had a girls' home in Winona Lake, Indiana, called the Hephzibah House. And that was for incorrigible girls who had gotten in trouble and needed a place to go besides prison. And they went there. And for years, the ministry continued, and then all of a sudden, some girls that didn't get things straightened out moved against him and brought it before the media, Uncle Phil, or Dr. Phil, whatever his name is, and they smeared the ministry and just ruined it. And so he's now in evangelism. But we had a young lady there and from Tennessee, and we went there and know the ministry, and I feel confident that what has been done in many places. Other homes have experienced it. Brother Roloff experienced it in his day. And so the world hates anyone who's trying to win and straighten out this wicked mess that the world is making. So God put him in the ministry of evangelism, and he's with us tonight. Ron Williams, amen.
So let's dive into this interview with Jenny, and I hope it really helps answer some of those questions that I have been asked over the last 2 years. This is right from the voice, the heart of one of the survivors of a horrific home that abused hundreds of girls. All right, today we have a special guest who is very special to me because I remember the day she got checked into Hephzibah House. For some reason, one of the few situations that stuck in my mind was this dear lady right here. I remember very well her check-in process, and I asked if she wanted to share her story. So, Jenny, the floor is yours.
Hey, guys. So my name's Jennifer Singleton now, but back then I was known as Jenny S., as we weren't allowed to reveal our last names. And the day for the check-in process was pretty traumatizing for me. I was really excited because I was going on a trip with my dad and my grandfather. They said they wanted to just do a trip with just my dad and my grandfather and me. And one of 8 siblings, I got very excited to have a one-on-one with my dad and my grandpa. I thought that would be very special. So I was pretty excited to go to wherever we were going. They never told me, but said it would be a surprise. When we got to Hephzibah House, they told me, hey, come on inside. We're just going to stop here for a minute and say hi to somebody. When I got out of the car and right when I walked into the door, all the locks started locking behind me. I forgot how many locks there were, but I remember it being like something crazy, like 5 or 6 or 7 locks going down the door. Is that right, Ben? About 5 or 6 locks?
There was 3, but there was 2 deadbolts and a doorknob. They actually had 2 separate deadbolts. Yes.
And a chain, right? I remember a chain. I don't know. But
I don't remember.
either way, once the doors was locked behind me, I realized that this might not be what I thought it was going to be. So I was brought into I believe it was called the Blue Room, to sit down and hear about Hephzibah House. They proceeded to go in and start talking to me about Hephzibah House and about the rules and how long I would be staying there. I was horrified when they said I would be there for a minimum of 15 months. I was only 13 years old and never really left home before. And so being told I wasn't going to go home for 15 months was traumatizing enough. But the next part of the discussion was where I freaked out, when they started talking about the rod of God. And they went on to say that they would be spanking me with this. At that point, I was just like, this is not okay. I'm 13 years old. I shouldn't be getting spanked with anything. And I'd never been spanked at home before. And so the whole thing just kind of just rattled me. So I immediately stood up and said, I'm not staying here, and took off for the door. Pastor Williams at that point started screaming for the sons, and all of his sons came out from like nowhere. And everybody was grabbing me and trying to hold me down. And Patty Williams came out, and she had this long paddle-like stick thing, and just started wailing me with it on my back, on my shoulders, anywhere she could get me on it. And I was being held by the boys. I'm not sure which one exactly, but I remember a bunch of you guys were holding me back, and I was just kicking and kicking. And then I kicked Patty Williams in the stomach. And that's when Pastor Williams came out and was like, "You hurt my wife." And the boys dragged me back into the Blue Room and laid me down on the floor. And it's all kind of hazy because it was so traumatic at the time. But I remember him giving the stick to my dad and telling him that he had raised a selfish, spoiled daughter, and that she needed to break that he needed to break her spirit. And so my dad started actually listen to this guy, which I couldn't believe, and started hitting me with this stick. And but he was counting, and Williams was counting, and I was being held down still by the boys. So there was a bunch of people in the room, and I don't even know how long it went on or how many whacks went on, but eventually I was like dull in pain, and I had been completely like, the spirit was like left. any free craziness I had or any more attempts was gone, as I realized that I was in over my head and that there was no way I was going to escape. At that point, somebody came and got me and took me down to the shower room. And I remember I had this really cute little outfit on. It was one of my favorite outfits. Had little shorts, and it was a romper. And I remember, like, I hope they give me this outfit back when I'm done with the shower. But I went into the shower, and I remember looking down my body, and I saw tons of bruises all over my whole body. And it was just the beginning stages. So they got worse as the days went on. But that time in the shower, I remember thinking of Jesus on the cross. And I remember kind of feeling like, I wonder if this is something he went through. And that was just that my 13-year-old brain could think of at that moment, you know. I was pretty Christian myself, but I wasn't as religious as my parents were, because they were going through this fundamental Baptist world at the moment. My parents had switched a lot from different religions. My mom was raised Catholic. My dad was raised Baptist. And then my mom switched over to the Mormon faith when I was about 8. I was baptized in the Mormon church. She left that church a year later. And then they started getting into the fundamentalist faith. And then soon after that would become the Mennonite phase. So there was a lot of different phases I was going through. So it was pretty confusing to me. And then hearing that the Hephzibah House was a fundamental Baptist was confusing to me too. So when I went in there, when I gave to the girls, I don't believe I had anybody on my talking list for a while until the staff. So the talking list was a list where I could talk to certain people, and only those certain people at a time. I never had more than 2 people on my talking list at a given time the entire 15 months I was there. After I took the shower, they took all my clothes and gave me new clothes to change into. And I didn't see any of the packed bag that I had brought along for my trip. But new stuff that my dad must have packed was put on my bed for me to put away. That was pretty shocking to me. That was really shocking to me because I had packed a bag and I never saw him pack other stuff for me that was on this list for Hephzibah House. So I realized then that the whole thing had been totally well planned out. For how long, I had no idea, but it was well planned out. I'm trying to think of, that was kind of the check-in process. So that was the check-in process. What else should I?
Okay. I'm just hearing it from your perspective, Jenny, is I remember holding you down.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I apologize. Let me get that dog real quick. I'll be right back. Okay. My recordings are more non-professional with a kiddo in the house. So I remember when you got checked in. So yes,
I was only 13 years old. I was like so young to be left out of boarding school for 15 months.
It's hard to wrap as a father of daughters that age. It's hard to wrap my head around. I would never do that. I just wouldn't do that. So I got a couple questions I'd like to ask you to help understand, I guess. So the deadbolts, just so I'd like to help you, because I know there's been some confusion, and my father, Ron Williams, likes to use this like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. So the blue room was the check-in office and the beating office where they did all the beatings at the School Street House. The room you got checked in there at that McBain building was called the office. They just call it the office.
Oh, the office.
Yes.
I just heard the girls call it the blue room. So
my dad likes to use that against you, all you survivors. And so I'm going to help clarify that. There's actually 2 rooms. The first one is at the School Street, the 508 School Street location. That one was called the Blue Room. And I got many a beating in that room too. I don't remember girls being checked in there. Hardly. I can only remember a few. I don't remember any particular girl because I was pretty little. But the office was the infamous room at the 2277 East Pierceton Road, the very large white building that is all over the internet.
Oh, okay.
So that one was called the office. It's just what it got called.
It's right when you go in and take a left, right?
Yep. You go up the stairs. Take
Yeah,
a left.
that's the room.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So as soon as you walk in the front door, there's a stairs that goes downstairs. There's a stairs that goes upstairs. And the downstairs, so you walk in the door, there's 2 deadbolts, and there is a doorknob and on that door. And then then you go down the basement, there's a fire door, and there's a deadbolt on that door. So you're correct, there's multiple deadbolts. They have a buffer system. So if a girl got through the first door, like if somebody left it open, they couldn't get out the second door. That was why that was done. When a girl was what they considered violent, they were taken downstairs for their showers. But if they were passive, then they were actually take their shower upstairs in the bathroom right next to the office. But you were one of the more violent ones, and I don't say that in a degrading way. I mean, you had spunk. You fought back. I admire you, actually. I really do. I admire you for fighting back. And you were taken downstairs. But let's back up for a minute. So, Jenny, I remember you when you realized that, because my father liked to have the girl in the room with the parents for shock and awe. That was all that was about. It was all about shock and awe, to put the fear of God in you, is what he would say. So he would bring out that big old paddle with the holes in it, and he would the whole idea was to scare the daylights out of you, so you would be this submissive little student that was compliant, and they could do whatever they wanted with, and make you obey. So you're correct. I was standing in the room, and Dad was going through all the rules and the 5 million different things. And then he brought out that paddle, and when you saw that paddle, you were like, oh, hell no. I mean, you could see it in your eyes. And you went crazy. And I mean that in a compliment, by the way. I don't mean that in a degrading way, in any way.
Right.
And we yelled for help, and you're right. It was Mom came in, and what she had was, and this was her favorite weapon of choice, was a commercial spatula. They were about 18 inches, 22 inches long, and then it was a spatula on the end. And them things hurt. I got similar whoopings many a time from my mom on that thing. Head to toe, bruises all over. You're correct.
Yeah.
And she did. Mom started smacking anything that moved, and sometimes she missed and hit our hands and arms, and we would get so ticked at her, like, "Don't hit us, hit her." Because we didn't look at you as a human. We looked at you as this rebel.
Right.
We looked at you as this horrible person. We didn't see your humanity as young men, as the boys. And we're teenage boys holding down a 13-year-old girl so my mom could beat you. And that was considered okay. That was pastors knew about this. This was not like this wasn't known. It was known. So yes, you were beaten from head to toe with that spatula while we held you down, and then Dad he told your father that he had to spank you if we were going to keep you.
And my dad, cried the whole time he was spanking me.
Is that the first time he'd ever spanked you or beat you?
Yeah.
Wow. Because that was the deal, because Dad didn't because Dad saw your parents being so distraught, he had to make sure that they were going to be compliant. So that was what he did. He's like, okay, I remember him discussing this because he had slipped back into our dining room, which is on the other side of that one door, and they had a quick powwow of what to do. So the quick discussion occurred, and okay, I'm going to tell the dad he has to spank her, because if he's willing to do that, then we know they'll comply with what we want. So it was a test, because if he would have refused to beat you, they were going to send you home.
Oh, geez. Really?
They would not have taken.
They would have?
Oh, yeah. They would have sent you home right on the spot, because they didn't think you could handle you. So when your dad complied and agreed to spank you, then Dad knew that he would obey and do whatever Dad wanted to be done.
Jeez.
So that's
awful.
That's what occurred. It's absolutely horrific. So that you're correct. Dad held. So you were held down, and then I don't remember if you were held down when your dad spanked you. I remember we held you down when Mom went crazy on you with that spatula.
I can't remember. I want to say that became just my dad.
I remember
and
we shut
Ron,
the door and cracked it. We were all watching.
And my dad. I
Yes.
kind of only remember the three of us being in the
I
room.
believe you're correct. So what we do is we would hold the door and keep it cracked, and in case you went violent or a student went violent again, and we backed off, and it was your dad, my dad, and we were all standing out in the hallway. And to our shame, and I'm telling you this because I think it's important this be showed in this recording, we were actually giggling and snickering. Oh, he's not going to do it. We were horrible. We had no humanity, no love. It was horrific. The whole thing was horrific. And this was, just so you know, you're not the only one that went through a check-in like that. That was not.
Really?
Oh, no.
But it wasn't common, was it?
For a period there, it was. They took in a lot more of the fighters, girls that had spunk. But over time, they realized they couldn't do that anymore because they were going to get in trouble. So they started only taking like reformed Mennonite, plainclothes type, or really, really super docile kids from like Fairhaven who are scared spitless to breathe without permission. But back in
while I was there too, my mom switched to the Mennonite faith, and so I was wearing head coverings at Hephzibah House.
Yes, I remember you wearing head coverings. So,
and other girls weren't allowed because their parents weren't Mennonite. But the whole thing was like ridiculous to me because my mom was never Mennonite. It was just another phase of religion she was picking.
One phase after another. But I just want to clarify with you, Jenny, that everything you're saying did happen, because they try to refute you survivors. They try to refute your stories, because you get a couple little things maybe incorrect. Everything you said happened. It just wasn't the blue room. It was the office, and there was 3 locks. Technically 4 if you want to consider the basement door. So you're very close. You're very accurate is my point. Your memory's very good.
Yeah.
So you're not losing it. I was there. I witnessed what you're describing. And when you kicked my mom, oh, Lord help us. She was so mad at you.
She was angry.
I don't know if you remember this. Once you were kicked, you were beat head to toe again. I do remember that. So you took a pretty good whooping with that beating, I should say. I hate to use the word whooping. You were beat. It was abusive. It was malicious. It was horrific. You were attacked and abused by my siblings. I'm not sure which siblings were there. I remember I was there. Dad was there. I don't remember other siblings, so I don't want to name them. But I know Naomi was there, and I know my mom was there. There was quite a few of us there for your check-in because we were given heads up that you were going to fight back. So we were ready. Your dad told us you were going to fight back.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So we were guns a-blazing kind of. Our adrenaline was pumped. Of course, we always got a high as young men, teenage boys, we always got a high every time there was a check-in because there was a thrill to it. It was it became, I think, sadistic in many ways.
Yeah.
So can I back up with you, Miss Jenny? And what happened? Why were you sent to Hephzibah House? Are you okay with sharing that?
So, yeah, I'm okay with sharing it. I've written it down, and it's a testimony of mine of how I got there. But when I was 8 years old, I was molested by my eldest brother, my oldest of 8 kids, for a long time, for about a year. And I didn't say anything about it. And one day it finally stopped because he came in and I didn't pretend to be asleep. I was just awake, ready for him to come in. And I remember ready to kind of try to fight back if he tried anything. And that was the last night he ever tried anything. I kept it a dead secret up until I was about age 12. And at age 12, I tried to commit suicide. I took a whole bottle of Tylenol, thinking that would kill myself because I was 12 and didn't realize that just like messes up your liver. But I thought it would just put me to sleep and just kill me off slowly. So I take a whole bottle of the pills. And my oldest brother, interestingly enough, was the one that actually saved me. My mom was saying, oh, she's just faking it. But my brother said, she's not faking this. She needs to get to the hospital. My oldest brother, the one that molested me, interestingly enough, he got me in the car and took me straight to the hospital. And it was there that they started pumping my stomach and they saw all the pills. You could kind of see them coming up from my stomach. And then they ended up having a psychiatrist come talk to me. And that's when I revealed everything. I said, I've been holding the secret. I can't take it anymore. And I was just in so much pain. And so they locked me up into a mental facility for about 2 days, 48 hours. And then they sent me back home. And I don't remember if I was sent back with any counseling or something. I might have been told I had to do some counseling to my parents. I think they set me up with a Christian counselor for a little while. I don't really remember all the details over time because it's so long ago, but I ended up, my mom ended up coming to me and saying at the hospital, which blew my mind away. After I said it was my brother, she came to me and said, do you think you could have got it mixed up? Maybe it was your dad. And I adored my dad, loved my dad very much. I was a daddy's girl since I was a little tiny thing. And I just couldn't believe she would even put that in my head to think that it was my father. I said, no, it was Jace. It was my brother. Yeah, I know who it was. I know it was my brother.
Were your parents separated at the time?
No, not at that time. They had been separated when I was 8 years old for a while, but not at that time. Or maybe I was a little younger, actually, because they were together.
It seems as if like your mom wanted it to be your dad.
Yeah, and it was really weird and creepy. I thought that was creepy, you know? But I never understood that, and I never understood why she focused so much on it being my dad. But anyway, after that, things just became really bad. I went back into the home with my brother who molested me, who I came out and outed him. He came to the hospital and he talked to me and tried to say, hey, what's happening? He was about older than me.
Can you repeat?
So he would have been about 13 at the time.
You broke up for a minute there.
He would have been about 13 at the time when he was molesting me when I was 8 years old. So he said he doesn't remember this happening, but he'd been doing drugs and alcohol, and maybe it was the drugs or alcohol that made him do stuff. So he didn't deny it, but he didn't admit it. still to this day, he's never denied it or admitted it, although I haven't talked to him in many, 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 many years. So I started running away around age 12 and kind of getting into a little bit of trouble, hanging out with kids that were troubled as well, that had bad family past. So that kind of happened. I was kind of at the early stage of that actually happening when I was sent to Hephzibah House. It was kind of brief because I was so young when I went to Hephzibah House. It'd only been from age 12 that I started acting up. So it'd only been about a year, but I guess, and by acting up, I was listening to rock music, which my parents didn't approve of, or Christian rap music, or Christian rock music, which my parents didn't approve of. I was really into Christian rock, like really into it. And that was totally against their belief at that time. They were against Christian rock. The other thing I started doing was I wasn't allowed to wear jeans anymore as they were going through this fundamental religious whack change that they were going through. And so I would wear jeans underneath my dress, and I would go out, like go to town and then take my skirt off and have jeans on. So those are the things when I said I was acting up, they're just typical normal teenage stuff.
Let me clarify. You were not doing anything really wrong.
No, I wasn't doing drugs.
I wasn't a sexual abuse victim.
Yeah, I wasn't.
It wasn't getting help.
I wasn't drinking.
And your parents were not in good shape.
Yeah, they were having marriage problems, and
correct.
I didn't even really know much about their marriage problems because they kept it behind the doors. But I know that they had it, and my mom was had different guy friends that would come over into the picture. So, but apparently, I was the problem child.
I do apologize for the abrupt ending of this particular episode. We were using Zoom and did not realize that Zoom only had 40 minutes per session for free. So this is 3 separate sessions. This is session 1. And I apologize again for the audio. I will improve these if I do any more of these in the future.